Hello to all our audience. Good afternoon in Europe and in Israel. Good morning in the US. We are very excited to welcome you all to our International Health Tech Pilots program. My name is Avi Lufton, and I'm heading the International Collaboration Division in Israel Innovation Authority, which we call IIA in short. Among our activities to help Israeli innovative companies obtain a competitive advantage in global markets through international R&D partnerships, I'm happy to open this webinar that will present a unique opportunity for the health tech Israeli companies, an opportunity to partner with top medical centers in the US and Germany, work with global experts in these institutions and with valuable and facilities and data, and also benefit from IIA funding. Especially in this time of the coronavirus crisis, it is essential to accelerate the development of innovative needed healthcare products and solutions. In the name of the IIA, I would like to thank the medical centers in this program for their participation: Jefferson, Mayo Clinic, Hartford, and Charité. I would also like to thank our partners in Israel, the Foreign Trade Administration in the Ministry of Economy, for helping this opportunity to materialize, and last thanks to our IIA team for making it happen. During this webinar, two other colleagues from the IIA would present: Ruth Friedel, head of the planning unit in the International Collaboration Division, and Karina Rubinstein, senior business development director in the startup division. I would like to thank you all for joining us and wish you an interesting webinar. Ruth will now continue to present the program. Please, Ruth.
So thank you very much, and thank you for being here all. We will begin. I will begin with presenting the overview of our webinar. We are going to enjoy each other's virtual company for the next hour and a half. I will begin with a very short program introduction on the process and the timeline of our health tech pilot call. Then we will continue to hear each medical center, who they are, what are they looking for, which companies do they wish to work with. Then we would continue to the IIA's focus area, bioconvergence, which integrates biology with engineering for the health tech solutions of tomorrow. And at the end, we will end with a Q&A session, questions and answers. So please feel free during the session to write your questions. And at the end, our colleague from Israel Innovation Authority, Nofar, will gather them and ask our guests from the medical centers your questions. Please note, feel free to ask any question. If it's technical questions about submission, myself and our colleagues from the IIA will be here also after the webinar. So use the opportunity to come up with questions for the medical centers especially. Thank you. So very shortly, our health tech pilot program is a call for proposals that Israel Innovation Authority is very happy to launch with 4 medical centers: Jefferson, Mayo, Charité, and Hartford. Successful applicants, successful companies, that means that firstly, they would be of interest to at least one of the medical centers, and they will successfully pass the technological due diligence of the IIA, would enjoy, from one hand, also Israel Innovation Authority funding, and also in-kind assistance from the medical hospital with which they are partnering. In-kind assistance can be access to medical data, other unique data sets, resources, expertise, equipment, etc. Of course, this call for proposals addresses different Israeli health tech innovative companies that could cover a range of different focus areas, which we will talk about today. Each medical center will present their areas of interest, and also these areas of interest are written in the guidelines, which you can see in the call for proposals in the website. From the perspective of the stage of development, applicants must have evidence. That means that they can show the results of a certain proof of concept that they have done, or they have a working prototype that needs testing and improvement. And the medical centers are looking for projects in which they can add value to this process of testing, improving, and accelerating the development to reach successful commercialization. The process and timeline of this call for proposals. So the submission is two-phased in order to participate. Both of the stages of the phases are submitted directly to Israel Innovation Authority online system. The first phase is a quite short expression of interest, EOI, 6 pages max in English, that should be submitted till the 2nd of July. The expression of interest would contain, of course, the basic information about the applying company and basic information on the proposed project. After an initial review in Israel Innovation Authority, Israel Innovation Authority would pass on to the medical centers the suitable and in-scope EOIs, and then the medical centers would review them and contact the companies that are of interest in order to check a possibility for joint collaborations. After which the companies that would be chosen by the medical centers, they would be invited to continue to the second phase and submit a full application to Israel Innovation Authority till the 13th of September. And then the due diligence of Israel Innovation Authority, the review would take about 3 months. So results are expected in December 2020. So that's the overall timeline. And now I'm happy to begin with our medical center according to alphabetic order. We will begin with Charité. Sign, the right to speak is yours.
Yes, so thank you very much, Ruth. Thank you also to the Israel Innovation Authority for inviting us to partake as I do believe the first European institution, and thank you also to the other medical centers that we will be cooperating together, I hope, over the next year, 2 years. So before we actually have some greeting words from our CEO of the Berlin Institute of Health and the Dean of the Charité, and I just quickly introduce myself. So I'm the Chief Medical and Scientific Officer at the Clinical Study Center in the Charité. And basically, our team will take you through the bottlenecks, the first of which will be finding a champion, so a PI at the Charité who would support the project that the company brings up. And the second would be to figure out a business model that will work in Germany. And with Germany being probably notorious for administrative difficulties, that's really what we're there for, to support you through that process. Otherwise, we really see this as a possibility to bring innovation to Germany and to Berlin. And the Charité is so large that we actually are open to almost any focus area. I will be more specific in my last slide, but at this point, I'd like to actually hand over to our Dean, who couldn't be here himself, but who was kind enough to record some words about the Charité. So maybe just to be brief, the slide, please.
Good afternoon to everybody attending this webinar. It's both an honor and a pleasure for me to address this diverse international audience. Particularly in such unusual times, I would like to stress my immense gratitude to everyone involved in setting up this webinar platform. As Dean of Charité and CEO of the Berlin Institute of Health, I would like to provide you with a very brief overview of both institutions. The Charité is one of the largest university hospitals in Europe, with an impressive history stretching over more than 3 centuries. Indeed, over half of all German Nobel Prize winners in physiology or medicine taught or researched at Charité. With 4 campuses across the city and over 100 departments, it's home to approximately 18,000 employees and some 7,500 students. Charité strives to bring cutting-edge medicine to our patients and into lecture halls each and every day. In a recent Newsweek ranking of the world's top hospitals, Charité was ranked best in Europe and 5th in the world, out of over 1,000 institutions worldwide. The Berlin Institute of Health, BRH, was established in 2013 and is jointly supported by federal and regional funding. It aims to address fundamental gaps in translational medicine and thus pioneering a new model of value-based personalized medical care. In September 2019, the BIH and the Israel Innovation Authority signed a Memorandum of Understanding aiming to jointly develop innovative healthcare solutions and thus improve patient care. The partnership is the result of a long-standing relationship between Charité BIH on one side and Israel on the other side. It reflects enormous efforts to strengthen academic activities through technology innovation. We are thus very excited to cooperate with Israel and its many young entrepreneurs, particularly acknowledging that Israel is one of the leading players in the international digital healthcare scene. This program we have developed will help us to ensure that innovations benefit patients as quickly as possible, lending real substance to the translational slogan from bench to bedside and from bedside to bench. Whilst I cannot attend today's webinar personally, it was of great importance to me to send this video message and to encourage each and every participant to make most of this unique opportunity. Finally, I'd like to add that especially when facing the current pandemic, securing swift, impactful developments means we must bring together modern technology and clever thinking. Only in this way we can sustainably tackle global healthcare issues that impact upon every person on this planet. With this, I would wish you a very pleasant webinar. Please enjoy the day.
So if you please give me the next slide. So I said that we're so large that we really are not making a major focus, but in 2019 in Germany, there was the new Healthcare Act, which basically allows us to prescribe applications as we prescribe medications. So that's really one of the focuses we are putting, is to try and get a competitive advantage, as I said before, in the area of digital and mobile health. And these are just some points that might be important when thinking about apps as on prescription. This would include patient and public involvement and engagement, mobile health applications, and I'll just say wearables and bioconvergence. So we'll be open for questions at the end, and I would like to just quickly introduce two colleagues that are with us in the podium discussion. That's Maria Rönnefahrt, who will be in charge of finding the champion PIs, and that's Luisa Tavera, who's here for business models from our tech transfer. So thank you very much, and we look forward to the questions.
Thank you very much, Sain. So now we are continuing with Hartford. Barry, the right to speak is yours.
Are you able to see? Can you hear me, Ruth?
Yes.
All right. Hi, everybody. Good morning. A great pleasure to have the opportunity to speak to everybody, and it's a great honor and privilege to be participating with these other great institutions and the Israeli Innovation Authority. Hartford HealthCare has had a long-standing relationship with Israel, and we're looking forward to continuing that. Part of this presentation, I just want to introduce my colleague, Beth Chatty, who's the VP for Network Development at Hartford HealthCare, and I am the Chief Clinical Innovation Officer at Hartford HealthCare, as well as a vascular and interventional radiologist. So looking forward to telling you a little bit about Hartford and Hartford HealthCare. Hartford HealthCare is a large integrated care delivery system that is nestled between Boston, New York. Boston is 90 minutes away. New York is 2 hours away by car at the most. And we are a large integrated healthcare delivery system with 7 hospitals of all types, quaternary hospitals, community hospitals. We have surgical centers, urgent care centers, multiple imaging centers, and we really span the entire geography of Connecticut and serve about 17,000 lives daily, and we have 30,000 colleagues in our enterprise. Innovation at Hartford HealthCare is core to everything we do and has been part of the DNA for decades. It's one of the oldest hospitals in the United States. And we understand that innovation is important to translate and to impact healthcare delivery. And in our organization, we have a very disciplined process to facilitate that innovation. And this slide just shows that it's important for us to have an ecosystem where entrepreneurs and startups can flourish and translate their solutions to impact in an accelerated way. We have multiple different activities as part of our portfolio. We have a governance system where there is an organized process to evaluate as well as to accelerate business models. We have a robust communication system, and continuous learning and integration of innovation is core to everything we do around innovation. It's important from our standpoint that our leadership is completely aligned to support innovation through and through on a daily basis. This slide shows some of the innovation assets that we're very proud of at Hartford HealthCare and are hoping that the Israeli startups feel would be extraordinarily important to their journey of translating their products to impact. We have a Center for Simulation and Education, one of the biggest in the country, and in fact, trained David Adom helicopter pilots at this center. We have multiple acute care hospitals. We have a very large community care network, and by that I mean we have skilled nursing facilities, assisted nursing facilities, we have home health care, we have outpatient rehabilitation. And as you can imagine, in today's world where we're trying to keep our patients healthier at home, this very large community network is key. We have a robust research enterprise. We have a medical group with every single specialty, including primary care, and we have dedicated institutes to take care of disease processes like heart and vascular, cancer, bone and joint, urology, neuroscience, behavioral health. And we have a very sophisticated information technology and informatics department, which in the digital health space we believe is key related to the data and the technology and the integration with the EHR. But what we're most proud about, and hopefully the startups that do choose to join us as partners, it's the culture. It's the culture of innovation. It's the culture of respect that facilitates all of this. And when we put all of this together, we feel that Hartford HealthCare can offer a very differentiated digital health sandbox ecosystem with all the different assets that I spoke about. And we too have a broad interest given our size, but given the digital health focus in today's environment, we prefer to focus on how do we facilitate clinical workflow, evidence-based decision support, anything virtual. Virtual has obviously become huge in every organization, as it has in Hartford HealthCare over the last few months, having performed over 170,000 virtual health visits across the ambulatory, acute, as well as post-acute care environments in the last 10 weeks. And we specifically and particularly interested in digital diagnostics and therapeutics, understanding that artificial intelligence is a major fuel and driver for all these digital health technologies. And speaking about artificial intelligence and machine learning, that too is an extremely important focus at the moment in our healthcare organization. And we have a very, very long-standing, strong partnership with MIT related to all the advanced and next generation analytics to drive healthcare. So we would be particularly interested in working with companies that have that kind of expertise. We have funding from our own system, from our ecosystem partners, and basically sort of look at our ecosystem as an environment where any startup can come in and efficiently and frictionlessly, relatively speaking, translate their product rapidly to market with a very extensive network of mentors and partners within the organization that span multiple specialties and multiple functions, from IT to revenue cycle to contracting to supply chain. And as I mentioned, every single specialty. And we pride ourselves in having a very strong organized network of mentors, clinical champions that are inclined to want to partner with startups to make sure that the solutions solving relevant problems have massive impact, not only in Hartford and Hartford HealthCare, but the globe. And we can say proudly that we have over 100 of these mentors that are specifically and focused on startups. So the last slide really sort of sums it up in that we're hoping that the Israeli Innovation Authority, together with the incredible startups that are wanting to solve relevant, impactful problems, can find a home at Hartford HealthCare with all these innovation assets, with an incredible culture of innovation and a very strong, committed network of mentors to help translate and accelerate these startups to success. Thank you very much. Looking forward to the questions.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you. Great. So now we can continue. I'm handing the right to speak to Mayo. Kelly?
Yes, thank you, Ruth, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar. I'd like to offer my colleague Amir Lehrman an opportunity to introduce himself, and then I'm happy to go through the slides.
Thanks, Kelly. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amir Lehrman. I'm an intervention cardiology at the Mayo Clinic. I graduated from the Technion Medical School many years ago and did all my training at Mayo. We recognized several years ago the benefit of the collaboration between Mayo Clinic and Israeli startup companies, and we established an office several years ago at Mayo that it's termed Mayo Clinic Israeli Startup Company Initiative, where we actually in the last several years explore and enhance collaboration between Israeli startup companies and subspecialties or entities at Mayo. We did fund several projects in the past outside of this concept, but several years ago, during one of the Biomed meeting, we have that Kelly and I were there, we actually came to understanding that it's going to be better to do it together. And we actually already have signed an agreement about a year ago, and we have, or 2 years ago, and we already have one cycle that Kelly can get into details how we actually did it last year in a similar way. So we are very excited and honored to be again partner with the Israel Innovation Authority. Our goal as a Mayo, as a nonprofit organization, is patient focus and improve patient care as much as we can. So I would like to introduce Kelly again. She's my partner in this endeavor. Kelly?
Thank you, Amir. You can go to the next slide, Ruth. So my name is Kelly Kreinig. I'm the Director of Strategic Opportunities for Mayo Clinic Ventures, obviously part of Mayo Clinic. And just to level set, excuse me, for those who don't know, As Amir mentioned, Mayo Clinic is a non-for-profit medical center focused on delivering care to patients with serious and complex diseases. We've been rated #1 in the nation through US News and World Report, and recently Newsweek came out and announced that Mayo Clinic was the #1 hospital in the world. So we're very proud of that fact. We have 3 primary sites here in Minnesota, where Amir and I live, in Rochester, which is the largest site, as well as in Arizona and Florida. And then we also have a connected care network of facilities that we have relationships with around the world. And through our primary sites, we see over 1 million patients annually from countries around the world. Over 140 countries have patients who seek care at Mayo Clinic. We have about 5,000 physicians and scientists across multiple specialty areas and fields of expertise, including the world-class cardiology division that Amir's part of. Our practice generates about $12 billion in revenue annually, but given that non-for-profit status, all of the proceeds that we receive go back to support Mayo's research and education activities. So we're focused on developing great new technologies to advance our mission. Yeah, go ahead, sorry, next slide, thank you, Ruth. So our research and clinical activities have resulted in many new inventions that have been commercialized through our office, which is Mayo Clinic Ventures. Some notable examples would be Exact Sciences, which is a colorectal cancer screening test from stool samples, as well as some of the foundational IP in the PD-1 and PD-L1 inhibitors that are making strides to treat cancer effectively, certain cancers anyway. So our goal is to collaborate internally and externally to deliver strategic, innovative, and mission-enhancing solutions for patients around the world. Internally, our office sees about 600 to 700 new ideas from Mayo investigators. You know, we have a long history and culture of innovation at Mayo Clinic. But externally, we sign about 100 agreements annually to work with companies to either advance that Mayo IP or to accelerate, improve, or advance technologies that are, you know, with early stage startup companies, and what we hope to do with the Israeli companies that will hopefully want to work with us this year. Last year, we did find 2 early stage companies that we were able to come to agreement with, and that also received funding through the IIA. So we're very excited to continue that collaborative relationship, you know, this year. So we now have over 200 companies in our portfolio based on those licensing and partnership activities. And just to let the group know, we also have some seed funds that we can use to support some technology development, in addition to the support that the IIA would provide. Amir referred to it, the Mayo Israeli Startup Initiative, which we had begun in place a few years ago. There's some seed funds specific to Israeli companies available through that. But we also have a venture co-investment fund. So for our portfolio companies, we can consider co-investment alongside, you know, large investment groups as you go out and raise your Series A and Series B. So we have a lot of resources at our disposal through the office. We will help to identify internal champions and look for opportunities to work together. On our themes of interest in particular, we're always looking to identify and partner around development of new medical devices and novel therapeutics. Again, our goal is to bring great new technologies to patients around the world, leveraging Mayo's expertise, resources, data, and the like. But we're also focused, as is everyone, as you've heard so far, on digital solutions. Mayo is working to develop what we're calling a platform, which is essentially the architecture and the capabilities to build a portfolio of digital offerings. And we'll develop some of those offerings ourselves, but we're also looking to do that in partnership with companies, whether they be early stage or established. And so we've got a couple of different platforms that we already envision. One is using AI for biopharma insights, and we've already partnered that with a company out of Boston called Inference. Another platform that we're contemplating is advanced care in the home, so treating serious and complex patients remotely. So the technologies and services necessary to enable those offerings would be interesting to consider collaboration around. And then finally, remote diagnostics and management. So using artificial intelligence and digital solutions to develop algorithms to diagnose disease or monitor patients in a remote setting. So, we have a broad view. We're interested in innovation across our practice, which is wide-reaching. But our focus is to work with companies where we can add value to what they're working on by partnering the company with Mayo experts to work in a meaningful way together, where there's value to Mayo for the collaboration, but value to the company by providing that access to resources, expertise, and speed in development for ultimately solutions, again, that are going to benefit patients around the world. So I'll stop there and look forward to any questions at the end. And thank you again for allowing us to participate.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Continuing then to Thomas Jefferson. Tzvi and Adam, right to speak is yours. Thank you.
We will have the first slide, please. My name is Tzvi Grunwald. I'm the Executive Director of the Jefferson Israel Center. It is my pleasure introducing Dr. Adam Dicker. He is the Enterprise Senior Vice President, Professor and Chair of Radiation Oncology, and the Director of Jefferson Center for Digital Health and Data Sciences. We are from Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Health System, and we are excited to see you all and happy to introduce you to Jefferson. Next slide, please. Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Health System are located in the greater Philadelphia region in Pennsylvania and in South New Jersey. Jefferson is showing a trajectory of tremendous growth in the last 6 years, as you can see, and our revenue has grown to more than $6 billion. Jefferson is more than 30,000 people strong, dedicated to providing the highest quality and compassionate clinical care for patients, preparing tomorrow's professional leaders for the 21st century careers, and discovering new treatments to define the future of care. Thomas Jefferson University is also the home of Sidney Kimmel Medical College, which is dating back to 1824. Today it includes 10 colleges, 3 schools, and offering more than 160 undergraduate and graduate programs to more than 8,000 students. Jefferson Health serves patients through millions of encounters each year at 18 hospitals. Jefferson is one of the fastest growing academic and medical centers in the US, and is #1 in our regional clinical market share. Next slide, please. Jefferson has numerous collaborations globally, but it is focusing its international effort and resources on selected countries like Israel. The Jefferson Israel Center builds on years of academic collaborations and developing meaningful relationship between Jefferson physicians and leading institutions in Israel. Jefferson has also signed memorandums of understanding with Karei Havana with major academic centers in Israel, each of the major medical centers in Israel, and the Israel Innovation Authority. We've been proud to host every year the unique medical student from Summer program at Jefferson. It's sponsored by the Surgeon General of the Israel Defense Forces, the Faculty of Medicine of the Hebrew University, and Thomas Jefferson University. Since Jefferson merged with Philadelphia University, we've been able to go beyond biomedical education into specialties like architecture, design, textile. Our students have just completed the project designing the City of Health at the Sheba Medical Center. So if you can imagine a merger between Hebrew University, the Sheba Medical Center, Bezalel, and Shankar, this is Jefferson. The similarities between the innovation ecosystem in Israel and at Jefferson are generating productive collaborations exemplified by the display of the company you can see here on the right bottom side. For example, Professor Marty Koczynski, our provost of the university, and the dean of our medical college has launched the car medical startup company in Israel, deploying his fusion molecules to cure cancer. Next slide, please. The COVID pandemic is serving as a fertile ground for Jefferson faculty and scientists to use existing collaboration channels with Israel to treat patients. On the left are few of the companies. The technologies we used include mesenchymal cells derived from placentas, remote patient monitoring, Microsoft HoloLens for education and educating healthcare providers, and utilization of synthetic patient data for research projects. The Innovation Authority and Thomas Jefferson University announced last month the 4 Israeli startup companies to win the first pilot program launched in 2019. The companies are sharing $1 million awarded by the authority to test the product, and ranging from proof of concept, validation, to commercialization at the Jefferson ecosystem. The outstanding success of this pilot and the others that you have just heard of from other leading centers prompted the Israel Innovation Authority to expand the project, and now the Israel Innovation Authority will support startup companies applying to 4 elite healthcare systems. And this webinar is with a strong presence of the innovation industry in Israel speaks volumes that we have embarked on the right track. בהצלחה לכולם. And now Professor Adam Dicker will present the Jefferson resources that will support companies working with us in the innovation fields we are looking for. Next slide, please. Adam, בבקשה.
Thank you, Tzvi. So I think what you've heard from Professor Grunwald is there was a lot of organic relationships over the past 25 or more years with Israeli investigators, Israeli institutions, Israeli startups. And what's happened over the past 3 years with Professor Grunwald's leadership is the Jefferson Israel Center, which has become the clearinghouse for a company or a healthcare enterprise, which is quite vast, somewhere between Hartford and Mayo in terms of size, and at least in the United States. And you know, our past efforts in the past couple of years are really based on relationships. So it really depends what you want as a company out of the relationship. If you're a device company, are you looking to do validation studies? Are you looking to understand the payer provider side of things? Are you looking to have access to subject matter experts? Are you looking to develop a digital therapeutic or a digital health solution? Do you need access? Some of our hospitals are part of the EPIC EMR platform. Some are not. There are advantages and disadvantages. Eventually, our whole system, all 14 hospitals, will be on EPIC. So what are you trying to do? Obviously, concepts, you know, telehealth, as Dr. Stein talked about, it took us 4 years to do 100,000 telehealth visits. The past quarter, it's over 100,000, right? We average approximately 3,000 telehealth visits a day. Clearly, many of our services are moving to hospital in the home, mobile health, you know, managing various, you know, comorbid conditions, etc. So I think as you look at all the different excellent healthcare institutions that are presenting today, each one has a different type of patient population. Each one has a different type of focus. The decision-making is different in all of them. Some of them have medical schools, some of them don't have medical schools. Some of them have postgraduate programs, quite large. So it really depends what you're trying to do. When we have a pilot or a test drive or a relationship with a company, we don't try to deploy it across the whole enterprise, right? We pick one of our hospitals where we think there's an internal advocate, where there'll be great buy-in, because we understand to try to do a system-wide enterprise deployment can get quite challenging, and that's not, you know, the major challenge for any startup is really speed to market, speed to data, you know, getting the next type of information or study done, so for their next capitalization or meeting with the FDA, etc. We do have a number of subject matter experts, as do the other institutions who've presented today, who have relationships with the Food and Drug Administration or other types of US or payers in terms of trying to understand what is the approval process, which can be quite complex in the United States. So it's been an incredible learning curve for us as we've been strengthening our relationship with the IAA. It's been great to work with the startups. A number of us have significant relationships with startups in Israel. I myself have been a mentor at Google Launchpad Accelerator in Tel Aviv and work with a startup very closely in Israel. So each institution provides a different type of expertise. They're all complementary, and we look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. And now we are continuing to our last speaker, the area of focus of Israel Innovation Authority, Karina, about bioconvergence. The floor is yours.
Right, thank you, Ruth, and everybody. Hi, good evening, everybody. So my name is Karina Rubinstein. I'm from the Startup Division in the Israel Innovation Authority and part of the team that promotes the bioconvergence area in the authority. We look at the bioconvergence as a strategic area in the Israel Innovation Authority and therefore promotes it on a national level, along with our tools and also with other members of the Israel government. I would say that we look at the bioconvergence area as the next future health tech solutions or the future of healthcare at all. And we look at how engineering and biology meet to develop new integrative, innovative solutions. And when we talk about engineering, we talk about all these areas that you can see on the slides, spanning between IT, nanotechnology, genetic engineering, electrical engineering, material engineering, and so forth, to integrate with the biology with an emphasis on the wet side of biology, again, to deliver at the end both therapeutics and care solutions. Next slide, please. And so we look at how do we how do we encourage bioconvergence across all stages with a national funding tool from multidisciplinary research in the academia through translational initiatives, incubators and innovation lab, seed funding, early stage and growth fund, targeted challenges program, and of course, international collaboration. And I would say that this webinar specifically emphasized the great opportunities that you can see here with leading medical centers on the international level. It's a great opportunity to join forces here and to promote developments in bioconvergence with these medical centers for Israeli companies across all stages. And we'll be happy to see bioconvergence projects promoting their developments through these kinds of collaborations and this particular opportunities. And we're hoping for additional opportunities along the way with the help of the international division in the authority. So just a few examples of how do we see convergence technologies, specifically in the medical area, but you can see bioengineered nanorobotics that actually deliver drugs to the patients, to a specific patients and specific disease. It's personalized, promoting personalized medicine in these areas. Also, how do you actually test and diagnose or promote discovery of the next era of therapeutics on miniature labs or lab on chips, and therefore promoting a more effective processes in these stages. You can see also some of the examples here of the bioconvergence solutions that we look for. Optogenetics, therapeutics, just subsectors of bioconvergence, electronics medicine, and engineered living and smart materials, also tissue engineering and 3D printing, lab on chip, as I mentioned before, organ on chip, and all these kinds of subsectors as mentioned here. So all of these areas, of course, are just an example, but all of these areas actually resemble the engineering, how engineering is integrated within biology in these areas, in this medical areas.
Thank you, Karina.
Thank you so much.
So now we are reaching the last session of the questions and answers. So I will let my colleague Nofar take from here.
Hi, everyone. We've been receiving a lot of questions and answering a lot of it on the Q&A option. So if you have more, please send them now. Some of the questions that we wanted to address the hospitals with, and I'd be happy for all of you to please answer. So companies are interested to know if their technology is not necessarily related to health, can they still apply? So for example, solutions for cybersecurity for hospitals or logistics and operations for the hospital, can that be relevant to you?
I can start. The short answer is yes, it depends. Obviously, we're a healthcare institution, so we do have cybersecurity concerns. We're potentially interested in exploring solutions that can be used, as part of monitoring medical devices. And more broadly, I would say that we don't have a lot of expertise to bring to bear for those types of solutions, depending on what they are, but certainly of interest, as would be, administrative tools and approaches that would streamline or make more efficient how we manage care events.
So maybe I can comment now from Berlin, if I'm up. So we have a new platform for digital medicine, which is in charge of devising the interoperability of data standards throughout Germany. And I do believe the colleagues will be interested, but of course we'll need to find, the proper champion. So, I would say yes, but we will have to check it. We'd be happy to check it.
And I would encourage companies that they see the list that each institution has presented, which may show the areas of interest or strengths. Please bring forward any idea, because we are looking at innovation. And sometimes you come from a corner that we don't think about, but if it makes sense and it answers a clinical need or a technological need, or bring technology that can merge between the two, it's appropriate. So I don't think that because it's not listed, it's not appropriate. Ask the question, bring it forward. And what I even suggested, breaking the silos, that if, let's say, cyber in Jefferson is very strong, but in the Mayo or in Charité or in Hartford, there is another angle that can contribute and make it much stronger proposal, maybe that's where we should go. And we are working on an uncharted road to some extent. It's a new experiment, but I think we have to also think outside the box. So bring your ideas, and either individually or in between the institution, we can look into it.
Yeah, I would just add that, are we interested in cyber? Of course. I mean, who wouldn't be interested, right? There are specific issues about insulin pumps, defibrillators, email, etc. Healthcare institutions have been held ransom in the United States and elsewhere. So of course we're interested, but I just emphasize Svi's comments, just keep a very open mind.
I just want to say that I just want to echo what was said. I think the beautiful about this project that, you may not see initially how this innovation is related to the medical field. And the beauty about the mashup that you can take application that was not originally designed for medicine and explore it and then find utilization for the medical field.
Yeah. I'd like to echo everybody's thoughts, and specifically around the last comment, that the most exciting part of healthcare innovation is taking innovation from other sectors and applying it to healthcare to solve really incalcitrant problems that we've been dealing with, just with different solutions. But I want to speak to the question on logistics, optimization, and operations. For us at Hartford HealthCare, it's a really critical issue. We have a huge command center. It's like a NASA-like command center that gives us visibility across the enterprise, from everything from bed occupancy to ER wait times to you name it. And
Sorry, I think we can't hear you anymore, Barry. Okay, for now, I think mainly what all the hospitals said is we encourage you all to apply. Everyone is very open-minded to different technologies, and the first stage is quite short, so you should all be able, if you're interested, to submit the EOI, and the hospitals will receive it, and if they're interested, they will contact you. So you can't really lose anything. So we at the IIA encourage you to apply. The next question we have is for Liat Primor, and she's asking if the hospital act as accountable care organizations, it's ACU, with Medicare in the US. So maybe can you all answer that as well? Maybe we'll start with Jefferson Sveen.
As I mentioned, yes, we have an ACU at Jefferson, and I would defer to Adam to add his portion.
Sure. So, many healthcare institutions are moving towards a direction where they're responsible for lives. Some of them are offering insurance products. We certainly have an ACO. It's tightly integrated with our primary care network. And if you have solutions that are more population-based, we would be very interested. And we have a specific individual, like many of the institutions who've presented today, who have someone who's really focused on population health.
Thanks. Barry and Beth, would you like to answer in terms of for Hartford HealthCare?
yeah, our internet went down the minute the question came through. So if you wouldn't mind repeating it, we'd appreciate that. Apologize.
Of course. So the question was basically if all the hospitals, so in your case, if Hartford HealthCare also acts as an ACU and Medicare. So is that possible if companies are interested in that?
Yeah, I'll leave that question to Beth if she can answer, but we certainly participate in that and actually run our own Medicare Advantage programs. Beth, you're on mute.
So this is Beth. I lost connectivity, so I really didn't hear the question. Sorry, it was related to,
Sure.
I got to tail end about ACOs.
No problem. Yeah, so basically the question is if Hartford HealthCare also acts as an ACO with Medicare.
So Hartford HealthCare actually participates as a joint venture partner in a Tufts Health Plan Medicare Advantage program. So we would definitely entertain proposals related to that type of activity or accountable care organizations.
Great, thanks. And Kelly or Dr. Amir, can you answer in terms of Mayo Clinic?
I will say it's not my area of expertise, but yes, we are an ACO, and yes, we have a partnership with a group called Medica on insurance offerings, but that, so I think we'd be interested in exploring, but I'll let Amir comment further if he has anything to say.
I agree. We do participate that through several vendors, and we are actually encouraging innovation in this domain, mainly throughout offices, and also the fact that we have Mayo distribution in multiple sites. And so the short answer, yes, we do.
Great, thank you all. Another question that came up was in terms of the phase of the projects, of the products. So companies are asking, they understand that we're talking about mainly pilot projects, but they want to know if we're talking about phase 2 or if phase 3 would also be acceptable, or if you have any preference in terms of the development stage.
I can start if that's okay. So for Mayo, as I mentioned earlier, we're interested in contributing to the development of product solutions in a meaningful way. So while Mayo certainly serves as a clinical trial site for hundreds of studies annually, and that would include any phase of study, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and there are avenues to do that. For this particular expression of interest and program, we're looking for technologies that would benefit from Mayo contribution. So not simply executing on a study for a product that's fully developed, but areas where we can inform and improve the development of a solution. And then that could result in also doing some pilot studies of that at Mayo, but probably less interested in just executing a clinical study of something that's already fully developed.
Great, thanks, Kelly. Maybe Beth and Barry, would you like to answer next?
Yeah, I'll answer that. In our organization, we also would prefer to partner with somebody where we can meaningfully contribute in the development of the product to solve a solution. However, if there's startups that are interested in working in our environment that can solve a real difficult problem, even if they're late stage, we'd be interested. So we'd be happy to look at both, but clearly more interested in helping the development, but very much welcome any solution that can help us solve a really tough problem, no matter what stage.
Great. Maybe Charité next. Tang, do you want to go next?
Sure. I could really just echo what the speakers before me have said. I mean, I agree totally. That's exactly how we see it at Charité too. So officially, we do not have any limitations, but we're focusing on meaningful co-development.
Great, thanks. And for Jefferson, Adam, Svi?
Adam, let's go first.
Yeah, I think what you've heard is everyone's greatest contribution is really human capital, right? And based on the human capital, everyone wants to have a meaningful, deeper relationship. So, I agree with Kelly and I agree with Barry that, we want to have a significant contribution if we're going to work with a company. On the other hand, if there's an interesting solution that can solve a significant unmet need, and it needs kind of validation studies on a more global level, that's also of interest. But in general, we would prefer a deeper relationship than a superficial relationship.
That makes sense. Thanks.
I would,
yes, please.
Just another line. Of course, a proposal is here. I'm not sure how much money each company will get, validate or test ride the concept. Is this the end? And I think how you measure the success depends. Success of the institution who holds the project, success of the CEO of the company who wants to grow, success of the IIA launching, and so on. I think it's all of the above. But from the company's perspective, and we are hosting here large number of companies, they want to be successful. So if the product can mature along the line with a contribution of the best mind of the company, of the institutions, at the healthcare centers, and maybe even become a product that is part of the process or part of the system, let's say in Jefferson, that's a great endpoint. And if it helps to solve the problem, as was mentioned, and helps to improve life, which is the logo of Jefferson, we want to improve life, that's how eventually I think we should measure success. And if it's come at the cost, relatively speaking, of a collaboration between an institution and the company, or a couple of institutions, two of them, and the company to better the life eventually of the patient or the society, I think that everybody will feel that it was a success.
Great, thank you, Zvi. The next question is also for all of you. Ori is asking, can we run a pilot with a new device which is still not CE or FDA approved? So basically, if a company is interested, still doesn't have approval, can they still come and test it? I'm assuming yes, because you want initial, more first stage products that are not fully developed yet. But if you have anything else to add to that, please do so.
Yes, of course. We would expect that if it's a device, it's unlikely to be at the stage of CE mark or FDA approval for us to be interested in working on that. So yes, but there still are regulatory requirements in the US that involve going through an institutional review board. And oftentimes that institutional review board will require FDA feedback through an investigational device exemption pathway. So we'll need IDE approval, or in some cases, if it's a non-significant risk device, you know, the IRB can make that assessment. But there is regulatory requirements to do studies, you know, in the US, you know, even before FDA approval.
Let me just echo that we are participating in using devices that are not FDA approval. As Kelly said, we are applying for their own IDE for the device with the company. Also, we participate in an initiative that is called now First in Man. And First in Man is an initiative to try clinical trials in First in Man in devices that maybe are not finalized in their last design. So as opposed to medications that they have a final product, devices continue to change and improve. And that's why there is an initiative that is actually supported by the FDA and the NIH it's called First in Man. So yes, if there is a device that is not FDA approved device yet, we are looking at this. And as Kelly said, it has to go through the Mayo regulatory pathway.
Yeah, I think you're going to hear similar information from everybody. I think there are fundamental questions. Who holds the investigational device exemption? Is it the institution and a particular investigator at that institution? Is it the company? Do you cross-reference? So now we're talking about a clinical trial and, you know, all the regulatory issues, Helsinki committees, et cetera, as it relates to a trial.
So I will just agree once again. Maybe in Germany it's a little, I don't know if it's different, but the typical phases would be actually to run trials together to certify the machine in Germany and Europe, and then in the US. That would be a fairly classic setup that we'd run, for example, with companies from Israel or the US. And that's something that we do almost every day. So yes, we do that. And maybe one comment, it's actually, for example, with non-invasive brain stimulation, it's been important that the facilities are actually in the hospital and close to adequate medical care. So that would be something that we say yes to.
Thank you all. We have now a question for Jefferson. So Adam and Svi, if you can answer this. They're asking specifically about your interest in hospital at home. What are the facilities? What are specific things that you're looking into this field? And I know some of the other hospitals also have interest here in kind of remote healthcare. So if you all want to contribute to that and also share what specifically in that field you're looking into.
Adam?
Yeah, so, you know, I think what's happened with COVID-19 is it's been an accelerant for change, at least in the United States, and there's no going back. So for many things, you know, it used to be the hospital was a sanctuary, and now the hospital, at least there's a perception, is it's the source, it's the iatrogenic, you know, source for COVID. Although at Jefferson, of our 25,000 healthcare professionals who have direct patient care, actually less than 1% got infected with COVID. So we've been fortunate, might be luck, might be through preparation, not exactly sure, but we've been fortunate, it's been quite low. So we clearly, it used to be, in the words of hospital administrators, heads in beds, right? That you would build large hospital systems and have as many beds as you could, and that was the goal. And now we realize it may be safer for patients to actually be at home to receive care. So each specific service line at Jefferson, cardiovascular for congestive heart failure, oncology, et cetera, is trying to reimagine what hospital in the home is. We do have a number of people who think globally about this, and then within each service line, across our various service lines, whether it be maternal fetal medicine, oncology, cardiovascular, neuroscience, et cetera, are trying to reimagine what can we do in the hospital. This also applies to clinical trials and decentralized and virtual clinical trials as well.
I'll just add that we're collaborating with Sheba because one of the highlights of Sheba, they call it hospital at home. On the other hand, Steve Plasko, the president of Jefferson, thinks, how will we look like 10, 20 years ahead of us? And he came with a concept, the hospital with no address. So as Adam stated, what we see today is not necessarily what will be in the future, actually disintegrating. So the answer to whoever asked the question, absolutely, and we're marching toward the direction of a hospital at home and to the hospital with no address. So we welcome these technologies.
This is Amir. I would like just to enhance and accelerate what was said. Mayo and other large centers that are mainly tertiary centers are based mainly the population of patients that are flying or driving in. And then this is going to change. And we are looking for a lot of means how to continue communicate and connect with our patient, not on the campus. So of course, large amount of our patients, even when this epidemic will be resolved, will still remain non-face-to-face visit. And even when they're coming to face-to-face, the initial interaction will be non-face-to-face. And I think exactly as was said around, we will probably see, try to not compromise the level of the care, but will reduce the physical space and need to move the care to the patient's home. Correct.
Yeah, and I will add to that by saying under Mayo's platform initiative, which is one of our strategic priorities, advanced care in the home, which we had been referring to as home hospital, but no longer do because of regulatory implications of the term hospital. So advanced care at the home is something we are prioritizing. COVID, of course, has accelerated that with relaxing of some of the regulations, which has been great. We've got a pilot in that area, as well as a planned pilot that's been accelerated outside of COVID, which is getting ready to launch at one of our health system, hospital systems in Wisconsin, as well as in our Florida site. So absolutely is an area of interest for us.
This is at Hartford It's very similar to all the other hospitals, and as I had mentioned in my discussion before, post-acute care or everything outside of the hospital has been a priority of Hartford HealthCare for a really long time, and we've developed that extensive network at home, and we're committed to making sure that our patients are delivered care in a very sophisticated way at home, or for that matter, wherever they choose, whether at work, at home, out of state, being very connected to their providers at Hartford HealthCare with virtual health or telehealth, as well as all the biometric devices that are coming onto the market. And we have multiple pilots ongoing related to that, just like all the other centers. So I would say in the United States, that's probably going to be the area of the most vibrant innovation in the next 5 years. I think there's going to be a consumer push for this kind of innovation to occur in a very, very accelerated way. So excited to do that.
So may I comment on that quickly? I'm just listening to everybody. I actually will put out, I don't want to call it a challenge, maybe a vision, but if the hospital doesn't have an address and telemedicine is becoming so important as it seems to me one challenge that might be good for this forum would be actually to, have the patients being cared for internationally. So how could they go from the US, like Barry just said, to Germany or to somewhere else in Europe and can have continued care? I think that would be a big picture, but it'd be a new innovation that we might look at together.
So I would
Stein,
2 comments. The thing that we agree, and as I mentioned, we're walking on uncharted road, and I believe that if we will initiate a collaboration between 1 or 2 of us, we achieve a major success. But to go to the hospital with no address, I added in the Jefferson part the mobility issue, because as Barry mentioned, patients are, or in Hartford, Amir mentioned, patients are moving. So the mobility issue is very important. Mobility of the patient from the hospital to the home and back, but even inside the hospital, who is moving? Moving the patient, moving the equipment, moving the care team, and so on. So the mobility solution is also very important to achieve this encapsulating big goals.
I think, let me add one thing. In terms of this whole virtualization of healthcare, this is an opportunity for all the AI and analytics to re-optimize the way we deliver care. I mean, from the ground up. I mean, there's the opportunity, the aperture of opportunity is just enormous. We have to reconfigure everything. And this is that perfect opportunity for next-gen analytics to facilitate that.
I just want to mention something with all the development of technology and AI, as was just mentioned. Just remember that also don't forget the patients still are looking for compassionate care and personal care. It's not all about devices. It's not all about signals. And we are seeing it now at Mayo when we lift some of the restriction, the patients are coming in. So even if you develop new technology, I think everybody needs to remember that they need some human touch or some kind of a compassion.
That's great. Thank you all. A few more questions regarding the scope of interest. Some are asking if you're interested in mental health and also in plastic surgery. So that question is also for all of you. And just one more little question for Charité here. They're asking if your EHRs are in English or in German, so they'll know if it's easy to work with you. So maybe Charité can start and answer both of these questions, and then you can all answer regarding mental health and plastic surgery.
Thank you for the question. It's actually perfect. Oh, sorry, were we starting with the EHR or with plastic surgery?
Whatever you prefer. The
EHR I was starting with the EHR because it's easy. So I mentioned that briefly before, and So we are becoming this virtual international hospital in a way. And so the key word be interoperability. So I can't say everything, but most everything we're doing is interoperable in international standards. So if it's not in English or in German, then it will be translated into English or in German according to the FACET model. So FDA-approved methods, and that's really the way we work. Yeah? So we need to be interoperable on an international platform. I'll leave the other questions to other colleagues.
I can comment from a Jefferson perspective. I would take the mental health. So clearly when COVID hit, all our psychiatry went to telepsych, right? And we were really focused on two populations. We were focused obviously on patients, and some of that, as Kelly mentioned, was helped by lifting of regulations as it related to our opioid addiction, et cetera. And we were also interested in providing all sorts of psychosocial telemental health to our staff, right? So when we had patients who were dying on every shift in our numerous intensive care units at our various hospitals throughout the system, you know, we had to be very proactive from helping healthcare professionals with mental health. And I think that has been seen for all the institutions that are participating today. So I think there are two different populations, both our own employees as well as our patients. Obviously, some of our employees are also our patients as well. But yes, we have interest in that.
This is Amir, and I'll let Kelly also add. The answer is yes, we're interested in both of them. We are actually anticipating, not only us, that usually the crisis in mental health disease is not during the crisis, but usually several months following that, based on history and other things. So we anticipate that we're going to see a spike and increase in the mental health issues in the next few months following the epidemic. And plastic surgery, yes, we are. We have a large department of plastic surgery, and they are interested in collaborating on innovation.
Yeah, I would say more, so yes, on mental health. For plastic surgery, we are more focused on, you know, clinical application of plastic surgery to, you know, reconstruct after tumor resection and the like. Less so, or certainly, you know, much less so on the cosmetic side.
And with respect to Hartford HealthCare, behavioral health, we call mental health, behavioral health. Our network, again, is very large. And I think the Institute of Living in Hartford is one of the oldest psychiatric hospitals in the country. There's an incredible commitment to behavioral health in the organization, along all the lines that everybody has spoken about, from sort of any domain in terms of behavioral health. In terms of the innovation in behavioral health, we've seen an enormous interest of startups wanting to partner with behavioral health networks to be able to validate that their hypotheses are correct, their solutions are going to be helping, and to be able to scale it. So an absolute definite yes in terms of interest. In terms of plastic surgery, I would say less interest than behavioral health.
And just to add, to complete the angle, as you can sense, whoever asked the question, with the theme, doesn't matter which healthcare you deal with, that you heal the body and you heal the mind and you heal the spirit. All of them, as I tell my patient, I'm an anesthesiologist, pediatrician, when they say, what's the next step? I said, recovery is physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. And as you can tell, it's important component of healthcare, and at least the elite healthcare that we see around. But I would add, we're dealing with education. We're a large university, and I'm sure other institutions also teach. And if not a formal medical student, they still have education of the healthcare and grooming them and growing them. So teaching the educators, teaching the educated and the students as along the stressors that they experience as a learner and as a growing future healthcare provider. So the answer is absolutely yes.
I think I need to comment on mental health, otherwise people will think that in Germany we don't care about mental health. So the primary outcomes, one primary outcome is actually the health-related quality of life. That's what we will often talk about, to have a tangible benefit for our patients. And in Germany, there's definitely a strong move now towards value-based healthcare and patient-reported outcomes, which have actually a lot to do with then the depression, anxiety that patients develop. And with COVID, as the other speakers have said, we're really expecting that we need to monitor that. So we agree totally with that. And with surgical, plastic surgery, that would be definitely more in the clinics and bedsides, disregarding value-based healthcare approaches that any discipline will want to address.
Yeah, now we know that Charité and the Germans also care about mental health, so rest in peace. Thank you all. Okay, one last question I think that we have time for is basically regarding running clinical trials. So we had a few questions about that, so I'll kind of combine them. First of all, are you interested in technologies to optimize clinical trials? And then second is in terms of clinical trials themselves, if companies are interested in doing clinical trials with you, is that something that you're looking into like more positively, or something that you think would be harder to do in terms of this kind of project that we have? So maybe we'll start with Jefferson and then go our way back, and then we'll have some lasting words and we'll end there.
Adam.
Yeah, so I think if I understood the question correctly, there were two components. One was the infrastructure, the process, some of the back office operations about running trials, and then the other part is on the doing the trial itself. So the answer is yes. I mean, clinical trials are hard. They take up time. They take up resources. I don't think we're the most efficient in the way we conduct them. I think COVID-19, at least from an oncology perspective, it shut down the industry, the strategics, the life science partners. We still kept our major therapeutic trials, we kept going throughout COVID-19, but it put a huge strain when people had to start working remotely. How do you obtain consent? Is it digital consent? How do you obtain bloods, do procedures, etc.? So I think we're always interested, as I mentioned earlier, in decentralized and virtual digital trials of all sorts. I think there's significant room for improvement in our efficiency and effectiveness of trials. I think the goal is to increase the population of patients who are put on trials. In general, in the United States, it's quite low. And even within the patients who are put on trials, from a diversity, from a race perspective, it's usually quite low. In terms of executing trials, I think all the institutions participating today have efficient and effective clinical research operations. Each one, I think, has many similarities in terms of regulatory approvals, etc. Each one may do it a little differently, but at least from a Jefferson perspective, we're interested in both.
Great, thank you. Maybe now we can hear from a Mayo Clinic, so Kelly or Amir.
I can start. We are interested in both. We don't have a CRF, which means we are not a site that organize and run multi-center studies for other institutions, but we are very much interested in running a multi-center studies that are originated by Mayo investigators in collaboration between Mayo and startup companies like that. So we are interested in clinical trials. Of course, this is one of our major site of for research. The other one is also we are recognizing the limitation of now we have to recruit patients. And we are moving forward in revolutionize the way we recruit patients, the same way that we do non-face-to-face interaction with the patient. We're gonna start doing non-face-to-face screening and recruiting and even signing consent form of the patient. So yes, we are interested in both areas of clinical trials. Kelly, you want to add?
I think that's right. We'd be interested in, technologies that can streamline and optimize clinical trial processes. Of course, we encourage people to apply, so absolutely would be willing to take a look at those. In terms of running clinical trials, we have the infrastructure. We conduct many hundreds of trials every year. As I said earlier, for this program, we're interested in opportunities to meaningfully collaborate. So again, we want to provide access to interesting technologies to our patients. So from that perspective, yes, Mayo is interested in clinical trials, but for this program, it would need to be in the context of a deeper collaboration.
Great, thank you. And now maybe Hartford, so Barry or Beth, can you maybe elaborate?
I think everybody has expressed very much what occurs at Hartford HealthCare in terms of infrastructure, in terms of ability to conduct all these trials, but most importantly for this program, again, having the opportunity to meaningfully impact the outcome and development of whatever we're trialing. I just would add one thing. I think that we would very much welcome any startup that does provide efficiency and reimagining the way we could be doing clinical trials with recruitment, with health equity, and those kinds of issues.
And last but not least, our friend from the caring Charité in Germany.
Okay, so we clarify we do care about mental health. So so the Clinical Study Center in the Charité has actually just been just 2 years ago we founded. So it's actually historically all of the different institutes were doing the research themselves. So we now have all our regulatory affairs. Everybody sits in the same rooms together, and the on hands with the patients are in the various institutions. So we have a virtual common space. And that being said, obviously we're interested in any processes that could help us become more efficient. And we're looking actively at different solutions right now. And we run trials both IITs, so investigator-initiated, for our principal investigators, as well as in the second institution for external partners, for example, companies. So yes, I guess we're not that much different than the other institutions, except that we have the Clinical Study Center, which is actively trying to make everything a little more efficient, especially, and maybe that's worth mentioning, in the time to start. So the time where innovation actually happens in the pre-protocol phase. That's where we're trying to invest time and effort to advance innovation. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much everyone for participating. Just to clarify for the companies that still have questions, obviously you can reach out to us at the IIA at the planning unit email. So it's plu@innovationisrael.org.il. All the information of our contact and also the contact people of the hospitals here also described in our call proposals on the IIA website. So feel free to contact us and the contact persons at the hospitals. And thank you everyone. Ruth, any last words? Avi?
I think a great thank you for all. We've squeezed it exactly an hour and a half, but still with many people on. So thank you a lot. And I see that online about 90 questions we answered during the webinar. So thanks for, of course, our 4 medical centers for the time and for answering all these questions. And we encourage all the Israeli companies to apply and ask us more questions technically later. And thanks a lot, and have a good evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are.
תודה רבה, בהצלחה.
בהצלחה. תודה. Thank you.
Thank
Vielen
you.
Dank.
Bye.
Bye-bye.